Yeah, sweet girls. This is Clover.
Hi, I'm Domenica. I'm one of the creators of Generation F, a series featuring young people who are innovating change in the fashion industry.
Sustainability means hearing.
Sustainability is a necessity.
It's not just a trend.
It's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Is complicated but possible.
Is mutual abundance.
The importance of what we wear is a universal human value. We've been trading fashion materials across cultures, across thousands of miles for thousands of years. You've probably heard of the Silk Road, which was the transport of silk, but also the transport of ideas, globalization, and religion.
Culture is like definitely a big part of fashion. It's amazing ingredients to enjoy fashion.
Today, the fashion supply chain is incredibly complex and completely globally interconnected.
What we see today is so shallow. We know where to buy the garments, but we don't know where it's produced, how it's produced.
A lot of people are surprised to find that the majority of colors are actually made from fossil fuels.
In a given year, we're using up 1.7 planets worth of resources, which means we're constantly borrowing from the next year.
Fashion is an industry that needs to change.
My heart is beating like a jungle drum. I reach out and go and chase the sun, floating like a bird up in the sky.
What is fashion made out of? Fashion is made out of materials like fabrics or metals or chemicals and pigments, water and electricity. This episode is going to focus on materials from natural sources. We're going to look at a return to nature approach to farming, a futuristic approach to farming, and biomimicry.
A lot of the fibers that the fashion industry uses come from agriculture. There is a big movement towards organic materials, but there are a whole host of other practices that can really restore those ecosystems.
Nature is a perfect system. It's a cycle of life that is beautiful and interconnected in critical ways that we don't completely understand. Conventional agriculture, the way most agriculture is done today, also referred to as big ag, is about stripping the soil and removing nature. You're clear-cutting an area in which you can either have your livestock or you can grow your crops. You're removing all of the natural system, and then we have to go in and try to fix it with man-made solutions, thus chemical pesticides.
My name is Sierra Redding. I'm from Arbuckle, California. I'm an environmentalist as well as a contemporary designer and artist. Growing up around big ag and now living in it also is pretty wild. There's a direct parallel, I believe, between agriculture for food production and agriculture within clothing production.
Regenerative agriculture is basically a few key practices. One, keeping soil healthy and fertile, retaining groundwater and not using chemicals. The second is rotational grazing, grazing animals in a sustainable way. And the third is biodiversity, keeping as many native plants and animals in any given area as possible.
Instead of working against nature, we're actually working with nature. For example, a walnut orchard can turn into a forest. You're not sweeping the ground and eliminating any kinds of leaves, but instead you let those leaves stay there. You let grass come up. You even try to plant like a diversity of species underneath so that you can get a diversity of roots underground. By doing that, you're actually recreating the forest floor.
Most people don't realize how important soil is in our climate system. Soil contains more carbon than the atmosphere and all plant and animal life combined.
Whenever we're not covering the ground, that means that carbon is actually leaving the ground. When we have the ground covered and we have actual vegetation growing from it, we're actually sucking carbon back into the earth.
Conventional agriculture, including practices like tilling, monocropping, and overgrazing, degrades the land so it doesn't have the capacity to absorb carbon and actually emits more carbon into the atmosphere. With better management, agricultural land has the potential to store as much carbon in the soil as all global transportation emissions.
Healthier soils are also more productive. So it's this really beautiful area where you're making that business case for sustainability.
By keeping them in small sections and moving them periodically, we're making sure that the animal isn't eating all the way to the ground, eliminating any kind of vegetative matter on top. And we're promoting native grasses. That's what the rotational grazing idea is about. We're helping soil structures while simultaneously growing fiber. Kind of like 2-for-1 deal.
You get wool and a healthy landscape. Wool is an awesome fiber. I love wool.
Here at Davis Ranches is exactly a great example of being able to work with large-scale ag, but then also keeping wild spaces. They make sure to always keep a riparian habitat that's around to be able to host birds and wildlife, different animals, different insects. If we're able to at least even keep the sides of our fields filled with life, filled with diversity, then we could be able to still support a diversity of habitat for our natural wildlife systems. Regenerative agriculture is one of the greatest ways that we could be able to clean up our large-scale agriculture. Conventional farmers aren't practicing it because the results aren't immediate. You're going to see the results in 5 to 10 years, and it's one of the reasons why it's not sexy all the time. But I feel like that's just going to be the case within fashion too. We're going to make all these small changes, but in the next 10 years, we'll be able to see something.
While Sierra is working on regenerative agriculture, a back-to-nature approach that's focused on soil health, Ed, and John are doing futuristic agriculture that doesn't even require soil.
We're the co-founders of Matera, and we're growing radically more sustainable cotton in a transparent way.
Cotton is a crop that we've been using for millennia around the world. Its significance has been particularly felt over the past few hundred years.
If you think about it, America wouldn't be America without cotton. It catapulted the US to the top of the world economy, but it came at a steep expense. Slavery, colonialism, expropriation. The thing is, today cotton still comes at great expense. The great expense of human rights and environmental impact.
Cotton agriculture only uses 2.5% of global agricultural land, but it has a hugely outsized impact, using 16% of global insecticide. And this is a key area that we believe can be done differently. We use a system called hydroponics, which is basically a soilless system where we apply all our nutrients in water directly via a drip line to our plants that sit in a media that absorbs that water. And in this case, on our farms, it's a coconut husk.
Which allows us to reduce the amount of water used by up to 80%, whilst increasing yield by 4 times and growing pesticide or poison free.
Why would we want to grow things without soil? Well, the regenerative agriculture back-to-nature approach just isn't possible everywhere.
Cotton farming was identified as one of the key causes for the draining of the Aral Sea, which was once the 4th largest body of water in the world.
We're looking particularly at areas that are struggling with climate volatility. What we're seeing is that there are increasing water shortages in lots of cotton growing regions, which is where we want to first start applying our technologies.
We spent over 2 years in the UK working on kind of much smaller based systems, but our end focus was really to be in India and to show that this system can work. It's amazing to be working with local people on site, and we also have that credibility now that we can show this system isn't just a lab-based system. Like, we can scale it to firstly 1/2 hectare, 2 hectares, 5 hectares, whatever size, but we're on that journey to really getting this cotton into people's hands on the high street.
And that's where we see brands having to come in and really put more money at the base of the supply chain to help farmers employ these new methods.
Even though polyester overtook cotton as the most used fiber in the 1990s, cotton still makes up 23% of fibers used today.
I'm on the tail end of being a millennial, and then we have Gen Z coming through. They're much more vocal about what they want when it comes to a sustainable transition, and they're not taking any nonsense or excuses from previous generations.
Biomimicry is a process of learning from nature and mimicking it, not just taking from it and exploiting it. For example, if a certain type of leaf has waterproof qualities, we can study that leaf to maybe come up with a waterproof coating for clothing.
My name is Tammy Sue.
My name is Michelle Zhu. We are using biotechnology to create cleaner sources of color for the world.
The way that a lot of color is made is that you start out with early building blocks, usually coming from fossil fuels, things like benzene and aniline, petroleum derivatives. You put it through this process that involves a lot of toxic intermediates and reagents and a lot of high heat. At the end of it, you come out with this indigo product at really high purities that basically goes on to power all of the denim in the world. That's how indigo is made from a synthetic chemistry point of view.
You're ending up with a lot of heavy metals, a lot of other toxic ingredients that are then polluting soil, waterways, the environment, and human health. Dyes and dyeing are actually some of the most high impact steps of the fashion supply chain.
Our process is sort of like brewing beer. The way that our process works is a little bit different. We've found the sequence from plants, how plants actually make indigo. And we basically instruct the microbes with the same recipe on how to make indigo dye. We feed them sugar and they transform the sugar step by step to produce this indigo dye the same way that the plant does.
We really see that there's this kind of revolution going on in synthetic biology, which is working hand in hand with nature to combine these biological tools and chemistry innovations in order to create new high-performance, innovative materials that don't sacrifice between sustainability and scalability and performance. There just is so much room for innovation in the fashion space, which makes the need for scientific talent especially acute right now.
There are a whole bunch of cool innovations disrupting the fabric supply chains. And people are making fibers out of all sorts of crazy materials these days, from the DNA of spider silk to methane gas to create a new synthetic fiber.
We are rebuilding our systems to systems that work for not only the planet, but for people.
I think as a first step, it's important to recognize that we are not creating an incremental innovation. So we're not creating a new product for kind of next season. We are literally fundamentally changing the way our products are made.
People don't really appreciate the amount of resources that it takes to make these garments and then just end up very quickly in the landfill.
Study, you know. I think like studying things like so important.
It can start with really small things. When you're buying a piece of clothing, just looking at the label to see what material is it made from or brands you buy from, just going on their websites and being like, do they have a sustainability page? Do they have an ethics page? And kind of how are they being involved and what are they sharing?
It's important to know what your fashion is made out of. Not only will it help you make better, more sustainable choices in terms of what you wear, but it's also really cool. For example, gold came from outer space. It's not naturally made on Earth.
Are you ready? Ready to go? Are you ready? Ready for more? Are you ready? Ready for me?
The world of materials is fascinating and exciting and beautiful. The key takeaway and action item for this episode is to choose better materials when you buy fashion. Preferably, you're going to buy something that's been pre-owned, but if you do buy new stuff, choose better materials. You can learn more about what these are on our website at genfseries.com.
I just had this reflective moment of how I introduced myself before, and I think that it's been hard going through different job titles and wondering how to navigate this new field of sustainability and regenerative agriculture. And so I just wanted to try to reintroduce myself again. And after reflecting on it, I've realized my name is Sierra Redding. I live in Arbuckle, California. And I believe that I'm a shepherdess. I believe that I'm learning how to be a conservationist. I'm an artist and designer, and I'm also an educator. But primarily, I'm someone who cares. And I think that's what our world needs more of, is people who care. Thank you.